um, since it is one, and then we might have a few stragglers, but that's fine. Um, my name is Alex Karei. I'm marketing director at WebSpec Design. We're in Urbandale, and today you're at Integrated Marketing. Why a website isn't enough? If you didn't figure that out, up there. So yeah, let's just get started. So a little bit about me, just to give you some background. I graduated from Iowa State in 2011 with a degree in graphic design, and I took a job at a global education technology company as an in-house graphic designer. And as that company grew, I kind of evolved into becoming more of a marketing associate. Was mostly self-taught and learned a lot about
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Marketing strategy, different, really just all-encompassing marketing, because we were just a small company, and kind of the nature of marketing is when you're in a small company, you're doing everything. So from there, and just this last May, I transitioned to WebSpec. So came in to kind of help grow the brand and define more specific marketing as it comes to WebSpec. So I've been there about 2 months now. Personally, I live in Urbandale, about 5 minutes from the office, actually. Outside of work, I like to read about marketing because, as I kind of said, I'm very self-taught, so that's how I did a lot of that originally, and I continue to do that. Playing with my own blog, and I'm very into CrossFit. So I'm also working on my MBA from the University of Iowa in marketing to kind of supplement that self-taught aspect. And this is my second visit to DrupalCorn. In 2012, I came. So if anybody was there in 2012, I came when I was kind of starting to first learn web design, and I'd started to dip my toes in different things. And so I was living in Ames at the time, so I attended and learned kind of the basics of DrupalCorn, but this is also my intro into the fact that I am not a Drupal person. I went to DrupalCorn, I learned, I attempted to try, I failed. So, Drupal questions, just forewarning you, I will not be good at answering them. That's why I'm in marketing. WebSpec, like I said, it's in Urbandale, Iowa. We have about 32 associates. We do web design and development, software development, search engine marketing, photography, and just digital marketing in general. We actually have an award-winning SEO team from last year. We won at the U.S. Search Awards, and I'm very optimistic about this year. All right, so websites. Obviously, websites of Drupal in particular is why we're all here today and tomorrow. And when we signed up to be a sponsor for DrupalCorn, and my boss told me he wanted me to present, I'm like, well, what on earth am I going to go to DrupalCorn and all these smart people that are super good at Drupal and modules and all this craziness that I don't understand? What am I going to go and talk about? Or what can I teach them that they don't already know and, properly? So, and I was actually talking to Lindsay, one of my colleagues, and she said, well, you could talk about marketing. And I was like, what a novel idea, because that's what I do every day, actually. But it comes so second nature to me. Sometimes I forget that for people that maybe aren't in marketing, that some of these little tips and tricks on website marketing in general and getting people to your website might not come as obviously. So that's kind of why I wanted to share that with you guys today. And really, especially in this day and age, no matter where you're at, so where I'm now at WebSpec and the company I was at before, so much of marketing is really just getting people to your website through all these different ways, right? So it's so important to be able to get those people to your website. And if you're anything like the companies I've been at, why aren't we getting visitors? Why aren't we getting page visits? Why aren't we getting whatever? It's something that's going to come up weekly. So, and obviously that's because, when you're looking at a website, maybe you've spent all this money to get a really kick-ass website for yourself, or maybe you're selling websites and your clients are paying you quite a bit of money to put this really awesome website together, right? And you've got company history, and you've got about the company and stuff about the staff, and maybe you have a shopping cart, and you have all this really cool stuff. But if nobody's going to get there, what's the point? You've just kind of got this thing sitting out here in the world that's awesome, but nobody's going to see it. And kind of to preface that, I thought it would be a good idea. I don't know how much background everybody has in marketing. I heard a couple people say marketing was in their blood. before we started. But ultimately, it kind of, in simple terms, when you think about marketing, I know a lot of people say, oh, that's social media, that's TV advertisements, that's, billboards or whatever. That's marketing, but those are actually marketing tactics. So a good marketing strategy needs to have campaigns within it. So you've got goals and you have a vision of what you're going to do, and then you pick those tactics to support that. So technically, a marketing campaign is a coordinated series of tactics that can include promotion of a product or a thing like a website through different mediums using a variety of different types of advertisements. So, for example, I kind of was trying to think in really simple terms. So if I sell apples, and this year I really want to sell more apples, maybe my campaign is 2015 apple sales increase. Super simple, it's kind of my overarching theme, right? And then a tactic is what I'm going to use to support that goal. So maybe my tactic is that, okay, I think if I advertise using apple pie recipes, I'll sell more apples because people will see the pie recipe and want to buy apples. And then within that tactic, you're going to use different mediums. So my mediums would be something like maybe print advertisements and magazines, that's where you're going to put the recipe. Or you're going to send email blasts to people with that recipe, okay? So it all kind of layers together. And I think that's sometimes where people get the most confused about marketing is they say, oh, we need to get website visitors. We're just going to use Twitter. Well, that's not really a goal. I mean, using Twitter is a way that ultimately you could get there, but using Twitter is down here, and you need to figure out what your tactic is, and ultimately your overall goals and your overall campaign is going to be. So, going back to websites, you really, you're wanting people to get to the website to see all this really great information we've talked about. But websites are going to be passive. Like kind of how I was saying, they're sitting there. They're passive in that they're sitting there. They're not going to do anything on their own. They're not going to go out on their own and pick people out. You have to get them there. So unlike something like an email blast, it's going to be more active because you're sending that to the person to pull them in. Okay, so for this kind of experiment, I called it 2015 website traffic increase. So our theoretical website, this year we just want general traffic increase. Probably within there we'd have some sort of metrics behind it because that's really what you're going to drill down to, but for today we're not going to go that deep. But that's always important, is just to say 20% more visits, or you can pick a number, however you think it's best to measure it within kind of your company based on your goals. So, and like I was just kind of saying, so your goal then is to increase the traffic. So what are going to be our tactics, or what are going to be the mediums we're going to use? Whoops. Which leads us into the topic of this presentation, which is actually integrated marketing. So the American Marketing Association, which is kind of like the overall awesome marketing people, I guess you could call out there, kind of overseeing everything, said the integrated marketing communication is the application of consistent brand messaging across both traditional and non-traditional marketing channels and using different promotional methods to reinforce each other, which is a lot of big words. And it is kind of, integrated marketing is a big subject, but really what it breaks down to is that integrated marketing means everything you're doing is connected. So as you're looking at your marketing campaign, for instance, to increase website visits, you need to look at all these different mediums and how they're going to not only affect your customers, but affect each other. So how can you use something that's here and something that's here and help them support each other and ultimately help push each other to do better, okay? And I'm going to kind of go through a little of that as I talk about the different strategies today. So I'm going to talk about 7 strategies or tactics that can help get people to your website. And hopefully I can give you guys a few things to take away. Something I want to definitely enforce up front is that not all tactics are going to work for all companies. So what you're using at your individual company is really going to depend on what your goals are, who your audience is, because your audience dictates everything you do in marketing. If you're talking to 60-year-old men versus 20-year-old girls, completely different audience. They have different habits. They're going to look at different things, you know. They're much more like on Facebook, for instance, and Twitter than maybe a 60-year-old man. He doesn't care for the most part. So I'm going to talk about several different things, but definitely think about that. Think about who you're trying to attract to your website when you're thinking about these tactics. And also, I would say think about what you can accomplish or what you can take away from each one, because I mean, I totally get it. I'm a one-person marketing department essentially at my company. So there are a lot of things I would love to do that I can't do because I'm one person. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of you that are out there too that are kind of just one person. And you've got a lot of things that you have to take care of over here. So you can't dedicate, you know, solely committed time to some of the things I'm going to say today. So, you know, if you can't do it in full capacity, pick out one or two things that you can improve today. Put the other things on your you know, your marker board and say, maybe in 5 years I'd like to be here, or maybe in whatever, I'd like to get to this point. Or maybe when we hire 2 more people, this is on my list. Okay, so first thing I want to bring up is SEO, which I would imagine is a topic you guys are a little more familiar with. But I mean, in terms of marketing and getting people to your website, SEO is probably the best thing you can do up front and the most, I mean, really the most effective, because so many of the other things are reliant on the customer, whereas SEO is so much more reliant on Google delivering it, I guess. So from the get-go, setting up your website to be optimized correctly. Like I said, I'm not an expert in Drupal by any means, but there are people out here that are much obviously better at it than me. Just make sure you're setting up your pages correctly. So when you're ready to implement that SEO, that it's going to be used in the right ways. You're going to need to stay attuned to Google's algorithm changes. As you guys may or may not know, Google's changing stuff all the time. So what you set up today, by the end of the year, could be, you know, not hitting your website where it was before. And just make sure you're also kind of reflecting that, auditing your site periodically, just to make sure. Because even if you don't think your site's getting hit, maybe you're just not seeing that, or you're not realizing where it's going to get hit without seeing those hard facts. And my last point is to hire an expert. And I promise this is not a sales pitch, although we'd love to have you. But I used to work in-house, and I tried for probably 2 years to do SEO on my own, because I was like, I can do this. I don't need to hire somebody. I can totally do this on my own. And I did these little things here and there. And by the end of the 2 years, I told my boss, we need to hire somebody. We either need to hire somebody to be full-time, or we need to hire a consultant that we're going to bring on for at least 20 hours a month, because I can't keep up with Google and, you know, do my regular job, implement the changes we need, all of that. So I would say really consider hiring somebody to help you do that, you know, because they're going to do the best job at it. They're going to be able to stay up on the latest stuff. You know, then you just don't have to worry about it, honestly. All right, second, it's kind of my second favorite one would be blogging. So I know there's a lot of back and forth these days, you know, everyone has a blog, is it worth blogging? Everyone's saying the same thing. But in terms of getting consistent traffic to your site, it's actually a really great way to pull that in. So if you're going to decide to blog, which I think is a great idea for a lot of people, depending on the audience you're trying to pull in, of course. First of all, decide how often you're going to post and stick to that, which is probably one of the hardest things to do in a business, is if you're going to say, I'm going to blog twice a week. Because, you know, whatever comes up for me, I have RFPs that I'm responding to that take over my life, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh gosh, we didn't get a blog up. So really you've got to stick to that schedule, because your customers or readers are going to expect to see that consistent content. And as long as you're consistent, once you start to gain readers, that's when they're going to check. So if you kind of blog consistently for 6 months and then you fall off the earth, A, you know, you're going to lose that consistent traffic to your site. But B, I don't know if you've ever gone to a site and gone, well, they haven't blogged in 6 months, so what's going on at that company? Are they doing okay? So, that's kind of another side effect of it. When you're picking your topics, really make sure they're relevant to what your business goals are. So, for instance, if you're a website company, don't blog about coffee. I've seen that happen, and I think it's really weird. I don't understand why someone would do that. And that's mostly because when I'm thinking about topics for our blog, I think, so if I'm one of our potential customers, or if I'm a current customer maybe of a different web company, what am I Googling that is going to make them come to our site, and then once they're at our site, maybe look at what we do. So for instance, this blog was 6 reasons your website could use a redesign. This one's really great because if I go out and I'm at a trade show or whatever, and for instance, this actually happened a couple weeks ago, that I met somebody that said, my boss really doesn't think we need a new website, but I really think we need a new website, and I really want her to believe me. And I went and looked at their website, and I was like, yeah, you really do need a new website, because it was one of those little squares up in the top left corner with like this weird animation, and it was all in like Times New Roman, and I'm like, yeah, you do. So I emailed her and I sent her this blog link. So first of all, this blog is good for that, in that I can use it as the next point as a sales tool. But if somebody Googles something to the effects of, if trying to figure out if they need to do a redesign, okay, then hopefully they'll find this blog, they'll read, there was like 6 points, this is just a screenshot of it, and they'll think, yeah, maybe I do, and well, maybe I'll go over the portfolio and see, what's this company do, how's their work or whatever. And last, this kind of feeds into the integrated marketing, in that you can share it. So I'm going to talk about social media a little later, but this is one of those examples about how integrated marketing affects both blogging and social media. Blogging could be considered social media or it cannot. It kind of depends on people's opinions, but you're trying to do social media, bam, you've just got a wealth of content right here. All right, and then the second form of blogging that I really like is blogging on other people's websites. This is just great because you're, hopefully picking blogs that get a lot of traffic, and then you're trying to direct traffic back to yours. If you want to try to do this, I would say definitely pick websites that get attention and visits from your target market already. A good way to do that, you just read their blog, and you say, is this content that I would put on my blog? Awesome, it is. So they're probably going after the same market. And then of course you can also talk to the blog owner too and see, what do your metrics look like? What is your audience? Stuff like that. You're going to offer your content for free, but I would say with conditions. We all know we don't like to give stuff away. So you really need to be careful when you set up these relationships of, I'm going to give you this article for free, but you need to link back to my site 1, 2, 3 times. You need to let me include a bio at the end. I want you to share this blog 5 times on social media. Decide kind of what your parameters are behind that, and stick to them, and make sure, typically I don't do contracts, but you might even want to do a contract depending on, the position you're in. For these blogs, you're going to want to provide value with rare, hard to get information. And then this is really just so you're establishing yourself as an expert. So if somebody comes to this blog and reads that article from you, they go, this person, they really know what they're talking about. And then, like I mentioned before, include a short biography and link to your website at the end. So this is actually an example. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Business Record. It's a pretty big publication here in Iowa. They have this blog called Iowa Biz. And it's actually entirely made of contributors. But in each article, it's about a different topic, and at the end, they have this little bio. So they get a picture, and so this one says, more info about Dr. Anthony, da-da-da-da-da. There's a link to DMAC, and, so somebody can go, man, this guy, it was a really good article, and he's pretty smart. So I'm going to go maybe see more about him on DMAC's website. Yeah.
On the topic of blogging on somebody's site, I have a very lazy goal of once a month for my own site, and that's even hard to keep up.
Yeah.
I've had a couple offers from some decent places to blog for them, and I'm thinking I can't keep up with my own. You know, I'd love to share some juice, but I don't. I get clingy.
I think it's definitely something you have to consider because, especially when you're putting, like I said, like rare, hard to find content, you've got to be careful that you don't want to use that on your own blog. Because if you're already kind of struggling a little bit to keep up with yours, do you really want to give away something that you'd way rather have someone search and get on your blog? Or do you want, because I will say the problem is with blogging on someone else's blog, if you put a really good article on there, they get to that website, awesome, they read it. Well, maybe they don't quite get to the end, and they don't see that, you know, you're the one that wrote it. There's always that chance it might not come back to you. So, but definitely one of my tips if you're struggling with getting that content up is to get an editorial calendar going. That's something that my last job, and then I just got one established here, that we're actually planned out now 3 months out, that I have every week who at WebSpec is writing the blog and the topic. And then I kind of let them write what they want, but that way it holds everybody accountable for, or even yourself, because I have a personal blog too that I write, that I do an editorial calendar for too. And it kind of, that planning ahead really helps, because if you can say, okay, next week I had told myself I'd write about shoes, you can be thinking about that, and then you're not like, it's Tuesday and I need to write a blog right now and I haven't even thought about what I want to write about. You know what I mean? So
I think you know me.
Shoes?
No. The Suddenly Tuesday.
Yep. No, and I mean, that's definitely, and like I said, it's even an issue. I mean, yesterday I was struggling. I'm getting this presentation ready for you guys, and I'm like, all right, I got my presentation done. Got that email sent out. I'm like, blog. I was supposed to put up a blog today. So, and I did, but it happens to everybody. I mean, it's, so as much as you can, the planning really helps with that. And I would say get your own blog established probably before you try to do too much guest posting on other blogs. Just because the other thing is if they come back to your site from that site and then they want to look at your blog and your blog's like kind of all over the place, you know, set yourself up for success. I don't know. Yeah.
So in the context of government sites,
Yeah.
have you come across blogging as a tool that's been used in
Government
the
site.
context of state government or government sites? It just seems very relevant to
Yeah.
private sector.
These three are for my team, so I'm going to throw it to them too.
So we also worked on we just built the Iowa Department of Human Services website. It's live about a year ago, where we combined 7 different websites into one particular Drupal site. So there's thousands and thousands of pages of content. As far as blogging goes, I would say they have more, it's not really called blogging, I guess, in that sense, because they are a government entity, but it's more like resources, I guess. So they could be, it's more evergreen content that's going to last a little bit longer, and it's something that, you know, a user might find on their site and be like, okay, yeah, this is relevant to me even like a couple of years down the line after they publish it. So I'd say it's more like creation of resources in that sense rather than like a blog, which could be more like time sensitive, like an article. So.
Yeah. And Lindsay brought up actually a good point too. When you're thinking about your blog, definitely think about evergreen content. So what evergreen content is it's going to be something that you can post it today, and 5 years from now, it's going to be relevant.
Irrelevant?
Relevant.
Relevant.
Yep. So, you know, there's different, like if you blogged about, for instance, where Google's algorithms are today, right? In a year, that article's, I mean, more than likely, knowing how Google changes things so often, it's going to be fairly useless because it's not accurate information anymore. But if we wrote an article about, like one of our content people wrote about ways to brainstorm new stories, that is a topic that in 5 years somebody still needs to know how to brainstorm new topics or new things when they're doing their writing. So it's definitely a good idea, especially in your own blog. I would say guest blogging can be a little less evergreen, but on your own blog, having a good mix of that evergreen content that is keeping you relevant continuously is a really good idea. All right. We can come back to blogging later if you guys think more questions. Newsletters and emails. These are going to be a really great way to get people to your website because because it's a very active way of retrieving them, like I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. And you guys all know what newsletters and email blasts look like, so I'm not going to get too much into that, but two things that maybe not so marketing people don't get as into, and I think they're very, very important. One is that you're collecting your email addresses legally, and you're emailing people legally. Because yes, there are laws around emailing people, especially in a mass context. In the United States, you have to have consent from someone if you're going to add them to your email list and do email blasts. That is in the United States. In Canada, I believe you have to have permission within the last year, or they have to have purchased a product from you in the last year. So that's just like the case of Canada. But different countries have different rules. So especially if you're an international company, keep an eye on that. But this is definitely something that people abuse, and I've seen it constantly. So going to websites and saying, oh, that's the marketing director, I'm going to pull their name. That is not a legal way to collect email addresses for a newsletter. Okay? So
Are these federal laws?
I believe they're federal, aren't they? Yeah.
Yep.
So
Where
if
would
you
we learn more about that?
if you Google can spam, it's CAN spam, you'll find all sorts of information. But definitely something to look at, because you can get taken to court if you are found to be abused by this, and you can get fined a lot of money. So that's going to be my my little soapbox, and it also makes people mad.
Can you send them an email and invite them to
Yes.
subscribe?
Yep, you can do that.
One time.
Yep, one time. So yeah, it's all very particular, and I don't want to talk too much about the legal stuff because I don't want to misguide any of you, because it's hard to remember all of it. But as a general rule, if you are worried it might not be legal, it's possibly not. More like probably not. So if you have any questions, just be sure. But that being said, to get those email addresses legally, conventionally, a really good way is to obviously have a sign-up form of some type on your website. You're more likely to get people to fill that out if you're able to say up front what you're going to be emailing them. So if I'm going to put a form for a newsletter on my site, I'm going to say 4 times a year I'm going to email you a newsletter about dogs. It's been actually shown that if you put that kind of information on that form, people are more likely to sign up, because they know they're not just putting their email address out there to get whatever. Now, with that being said, make sure you're honest to that. If you say you're going to send them an email 4 times a year about dogs, do that. Don't go, well, actually, I kind of changed my mind and it's a different campaign. Because, like I said, it's going to make people mad too. Nobody likes getting those emails in their inbox that they're like, why am I getting this? So always think about that. Unconventionally, you can really get creative with different ways to get emails, but trade shows, if you have a retail location, in-store sign-ups, make sure on those forms, if you're having people fill them out, it says on the top that, I'm signing up to receive emails from whatever company, because that'll protect you in terms of the, like I said, the can spam again. You can put a form on your Facebook page to get emails. There's a lot of different ways. You just kind of think outside the box. Because like we mentioned, if they're not at your website yet, you're going to have to be a little more creative. But ultimately, by getting their email, you can get them to your website by sending those newsletters. And then content is really key for these. So, especially if you want people to continue to open them. Make sure your message is relevant, timely, and appropriate to who you're sending it to. It's pretty straightforward stuff. And really, if you also have that blog going, kind of like we talked about, back to integrated marketing, if you have a newsletter and kind of how everything works these days, most people don't write in wholly original newsletters anymore. What you do is you say, here's like 5 really good articles or blog posts from my website this week. Make a short summary, put it in the email, link to the full blog, you've got a newsletter. So that's also really great because, 2 hours maybe tops by going through your content, summarizing it. Yeah.
Are you doing the newsletters you're envisioning? Are these just envisioning this on email with links to a site,
Yeah.
or as a separate newsletter, like as a PDF file?
Nope, just newsletter with links to a site. So actually, a lot of the email marketing programs out there these days, for instance, MailChimp, if you put in your RSS feed, it'll even help you aggregate it. So personally, that's not my favorite way to do it, just because I like to be able to say, well, I liked that blog post, but it didn't really get a lot of views, or, wasn't as engaging, and then you can pick, but you can get it simple as that. But yeah, putting a summary, kind of however layout you want, summary link, maybe the sidebar has a fun fact about your company from the month, and out the door. And typically I would say, in addition to that, short and sweet is usually a good rule of thumb when it comes to emails, but I always recommend testing. So that's kind of more of an advanced topic if you haven't been doing a lot of email marketing, but saying, splitting your audience and setting a longer version and a shorter version, see which one performs better, kind of starting to look at some of that. And if you're more interested in that, tons of information on the internet, but we only have an hour, so. All right. Social media. Okay, so this is pretty much when I say I'm in marketing, what most people think that I do, I think, all the time. But yeah,
The
I thought that was funny.
The Twitter puppets, my friend.
So, social media. So there are so many options for what you can do. And like I mentioned before, depending what your audience is, different outlets are going to be right for you. I mean, anymore, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, Vine, Periscope, all these different ones. There's new ones coming out all the time. But just because there's new social media doesn't mean you need to do it, because you need to do it well, and you need to make sure it's going to actually be worth your time. So whatever you decide to do, initially having a content sharing plan in place is always going to be a good rule of thumb. So say we're going to start using Twitter. So when we use Twitter, what are we sharing? What are our goals, and what are we going to share every week? Are we going to share something twice a week? Are we going to tweet every day? Are we going to share things just from our website? Are we going to share things from other people's websites? Before you dive headfirst in, which I know a lot of people already have, to a lot of different networks without necessarily a plan in place, it's always good to kind of reflect on that and make that decision up front, because it'll really help guide your social media, and also as you're gaining followers, being consistent in what you're doing will help get those followers to stay there and attract more, hopefully. Yeah.
At the risk of taking over this session, a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I've already confessed to being lazy, so I don't have to say that again. When I blog, I tweet it.
Yeah.
Everything I tweet automatically goes to Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I was late to the game. I've been using LinkedIn since before I knew Drupal 7 years ago. So I'm now sharing things on LinkedIn as well. That's a bang, bang, bang. I can do that just as soon as I create the post.
Sure.
Are there some other simple things that I should be doing?
So what I typically do, and this kind of goes to the second point, is when I will preface this by saying we are working on WebSpec's social media presence right now, but this is what I do for my personal blog, is when I blog something, I schedule it actually to send once to Facebook. I do one message for Facebook. I do a separate message for Twitter, and then I also do, at that moment I do Twitter. I schedule Twitter for the next day, 3 days out, and then a week out. But I do that all at once.
So I look at your Twitter feed, I'll see that post.
But I reword it
each
time. So I might pull out like different points from the article, just slightly reword it, just so it's hopefully going to pull in maybe a little different person, or the nature of Twitter. When I said sharing it more than once, for instance, the nature of Twitter is very in the moment. So if I'm on Twitter all the time, but some people go on Twitter twice a week. And if you posted something 3 days ago, if they follow 500 people, they're not going to ever get to your tweet. So I like to do that all at once, and then I do LinkedIn also. But as far as other simple things, make sure a good thing to do is make sure, at least on Twitter, because Twitter is the easiest way to get shared, I think, in my opinion, over and over. Make sure you're tagging appropriate people. So if your article is about like a certain individual or a certain organization, tagging them, because that's something you can do up front that hopefully they'll retweet it. Make sure you're using hashtags appropriately too. For those of you who are maybe not as familiar, a hashtag, when you put it on your post, is really to group your post in with other posts of a similar type. So like, for instance, you guys have seen the DrupalCorn hashtag that everyone's using this week. So if you go, I can actually show you, maybe, to the DrupalCorn feed. Where's my mouse?
I'm really surprised that the pound sign appears in that. I think we're all just using the @
Oh, well. If you, I don't know how to get my mouse back over here. Alright, I'll do this. Maybe.
Alex, in your professional opinion, how many hashtags is like way too many?
Hashtag, too many hashtags.
There we go. Okay. In my professional opinion, as long as they're relevant and you can fit them in 140 characters, I'd put as many as you can fit. But relevant is key. So if you guys look over at this far one right here, so this is the DrupalCorn hashtag. So anybody that's tweeting using that with that hashtag is seeing all these tweets. So you can see this is me, Michael Hoffman. I don't know how to say his last name. Yeah, he tweeted. So you're seeing that all aggregately. Whereas this is web specs and like, I don't think I've tagged. So if you tag with the @ symbol, you're basically notifying DrupalCorn versus using the hashtag, somebody can search by that. So, yeah. So,
Since Drupal and DrupalCorn are such unique words, the using a hash in front of it's largely irrelevant from a search perspective. But I see your point about the gains of using it. If you take out the hash on that search, you'll see a lot more conversation going on that.
Yeah,
topic.
so that's a way to categorize it. Yeah, it's basically correct, and that's why. So like, if you did hashtag dogs, that's a super generic word, and you're gonna see gobs and gobs and gobs. Whoever talked about their dogs and put a hashtag, that's a much wider one. DrupalCorn is a much more specific one, so you're not likely going to see that really anybody outside of its conference. But then if you did DrupalCon, which is a more generic name for Drupal events of this type, I would imagine you'll see it again recategorizes. So
we've seen pushback actually. If we keep putting pound DrupalCon, DrupalCon, DrupalCorn, whatever. We've seen a bit of criticism. I know I personally have.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of us have just absolutely stopped putting pound in front of Drupal.
From a marketing perspective, hashtags are great, and they're going to get more people to see your content at the end of the day. I will say, I remember when I first started using Instagram that I said, I think it's so annoying when somebody puts 20 hashtags at the end of their post, but by using 20 hashtags at the end of their posts, their reach has gotten so much farther. So I think it's a balance. If you're finding a lot of pushback from your audience, that that they're saying this is so annoying, I'm gonna I don't know. It could definitely happen, and I would say if that is the case, you do need to be. Yeah, I mean, definitely take that into consideration, because the worst thing you can do is make your customers mad.
I'm gonna tweet that question right now.
Okay, so kind of going back to that, make sure you're interacting with others on social media. So whatever you're doing, interacting with others and keeping yourself genuine are going to be really two very key things. So this comment kind of jokes about outsourcing it to a social media strategist who couldn't care less about our brand. People can tell if you're, if you're really you, or if you're a happy voice that's out there just kind of tweeting super generic things. Your social media is going to be more effective if you're genuine, if you're true to your brand. For instance, WebSpec on our Facebook page, we like to put more like in-office happenings to help people to get to know us, and that's our approach. But the company I used to work for was an educational company, so it was a lot of not like necessarily stodgy, but more corporate-y kind of voice. So kind of establish that and stick to it, whatever you want to do. And then the other side of social media that I really like to talk about that people don't necessarily realize as much is that you've got to make sure your profiles are all filled out completely and accurately. So I notice this a lot more on Facebook than anything else, but if you go to About in your brand and it's missing information, there are so many fields you can fill out, and it just, I mean, it's free advertising for all this information that you want people to know. So just check those things out and see to make sure that you're filling all it out, as completely as you can, and take advantage of all of it. So for instance, something really awesome is like, for instance, in YouTube. So if you have a YouTube video, below there's a description, and if you click see more, that description can go a full page. Not that you should do that, but that's a really great place that you can put more links. So like to your website, which is kind of back to what we're talking about. So this is the Tonight Show, posted this Jimmy Fallon clip last week or something.
It's a Drupal site. It is.
It's a Drupal, that's why I picked it, obviously. But if you do show more, they've got what, like 12 links here that they've posted under here. And the beauty of this is if somebody doesn't even like the Tonight Show, but they Googled Tom Cruise on YouTube or Simon Pegg, they're going to find this video. And now if they click, happen to click more because they're trying to see what the video is about, they can go to Jimmy Fallon links, they can go to Tonight Show links, and Tonight Show has just essentially garnered more attention because of Tom Cruise. So this example, they're linking a lot of social media stuff. But the company I worked at before, what we did is we actually did videos and then did like about our company link, about our research team link. So pushing them to different sections of our website just is one more way to get people back there. Okay, online reviews. This is an awesome one. Depending on what your website is, it's going to be easier or harder to get this. But especially if you're in doing a website for a service industry, it's cake. So Google Plus, obviously Google Plus recently said they're kind of shifting things around, so I'm not going to go too much into that, but you can get online reviews on there. Facebook, you can get reviews. Yelp, TripAdvisor, you can get reviews. So if people are happy with your services, and it's relevant, just say, hey, would you mind going on Yelp and writing us a note, because it's awesome, really, because so if I'm trying to figure out if I want to eat a flying mango and I read this, or sorry, that's not what I meant. If I'm trying to figure out, where I want to eat and I'm looking for, this is like happens to be more of like a Jamaican type of restaurant. And so I'm looking for a restaurant in that category, and I read these reviews, and I think, oh, this sounds like a good restaurant. There's a URL right here to their website. So I'm not looking for their business. I'm looking for something different, but I'm going to end up back on their website. And in addition to that, if you, like I said, have a service industry type restaurant, or service industry in general, make sure you're claiming your business online. So this is the Flying Mango, which is a restaurant in Des Moines. So they went in and they claimed it, and they were able to fill out their address and their website and everything. But if you don't claim it, and maybe someone wants to leave a review, and that's great, but your URL is not on there, well, somebody hopefully will search for the name of your restaurant outside of this, but why not increase the odds, right?
I have a question for you about
Yeah.
the reviews.
Yeah.
Do you have a recommendation about, say somebody posts something negative on your Facebook? Now I know that you want to leave it up for a while, but what's the expiration date on that?
Yeah, and it's a super tricky question, honestly, because you really don't want to be accused of, like you're saying, like pulling it down and trying to
just to antagonize
yeah.
the posters, not put another one up there.
My personal, and I haven't had to deal with this on a business context too much because luckily I haven't had bad reviews, but my approach to it's always been try to respond, appropriately, maturely, address the issue, see if there's anything you can do. Lindsay,
I
your
was
house.
just kind of wondering more about timing.
Yeah.
I understand how to respond.
I personally wouldn't take it down, but I don't know, Lindsay, what do you think?
So some of them you can't actually take down, so it depends on what platform you're using. If
That's
you
true,
get one
too.
on Google Plus, for example, any like directory, you can't necessarily take those down all the time. So Facebook, you may or may not actually be able to take down a review that someone leaves on a business page. So yeah, obviously you're gonna want to respond to it, and then always even if you go on Twitter, for example, take it offline. So address it in a way that other customers are gonna see. Yeah, okay, that they did care about that, and then take it offline so you can just deal with it externally. And then really the best way that you can do it is if it's like a malicious review on Google Plus, you can if you have enough IP addresses, like flag it. They'll sometimes take it down. We have been able to do that with one of our website clients actually. But really the best thing to do is just continue to bury it. Like some of them, if you can't take it down, all you can do is just get positive
yeah, that's a
reviews.
good strategy.
Yeah, so that's where Alex was saying,
Yeah.
hey, you want to leave us a review on Google Plus, hand out like little cards or something if you have like more of a service-based business, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Lindsay's our search engine guru, so she knows all about that.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's a tough question though. I mean, I totally get it. Just have happy customers all the time, right? That's what we all have, right? Okay. So last thing I'm going to talk about, and then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for questions, is that other print or display advertising. And I really can't emphasize this enough because even if you don't care if they go to your website, you should always have a website on any materials you put out there. 2 years ago, I think, when I had Co-Opportunity Help, they sent me a flyer in the mail, like nice tri-folded thing about my coverage, no website on it. Co-Opportunity Help didn't have someone I could go to their business, okay? I mean, it was entirely online based, and they didn't put their URL on it. And they probably spent, I would imagine, thousands of dollars sending this mail out with no URL. So always double, triple check. Make sure it's on there, because you never know. I mean, even if you wanted to call you, if somebody works all day and they can't call you, and you're closed, they need to go to your website. Even if you're like an established brand, like this Toyota ad, it's right up here. I know you can't see it, but just make sure you put it on there. Do you have a question?
Don't you think it on QR codes?
I have been in debates with many people about this, and I think if you surveyed marketing people, you'd probably get like half and half, because my feeling on it, and I've felt this way for a few years, is that people don't understand them well enough to make them worth their real estate on your materials. If you happen to have an audience that is super duper tech savvy, I think it's fine. But general public, like if I saw a QR code right now, I'm really pretty tech savvy, and I don't actually even know if I have a reader for a QR code on this. So if you're gonna use them, and this was at my past company, this was kind of our rule. If I was forced to put one on something, always put your actual URL on there too. So if someone doesn't understand how to use them or doesn't care to, that URL is still there and they can still get to your site. Also, if you're going to use them, this is another thing I've seen. I believe they're supposed to be an inch at least in width. If you are putting them on there any smaller, the odds that they're going to become too small to read accurately are increased greatly, and that's a risk. You don't want them to okay, I'm going to read it, and now, it doesn't work, because that's a bummer. But yeah, I mean, I've met other marketing people that just think the cat's meow, and it's kind of a personal thing. I think they're just ugly. So that's my other graphic design background. Don't litter up my ads, right? But, and my last, I guess, point on the URLs is if you really, really don't want to put the URL on there, in this article, it's in this paragraph. So it's still on there, but it's just small. It's worked into the copy, so it's not super obvious. It's not affecting the display of the ad, but it's still there. All right, so basically, to recap all of that, SEO, blogging, newsletters, all this good stuff. There's so many ways to do it. Hopefully, I know we kind of went over a lot, and so for some people that don't have marketing background, you're probably like, what the heck? but just try to take, what you can back. And ultimately, keep in mind, whatever you're doing, how it all affects each other. So, like I kind of started with, if you're blogging, make sure you're sharing it on social media. If you're, one example I thought of last night was, if somebody can find your blog through social media, they share it on Facebook, with somebody that's never heard of your company, that friend on Facebook then clicks on your link to go to your website. So now you've just hit 3 different things we talked about here that all had to be there in order for this new customer to find your website. So it's all so interconnected, and it can be kind of crazy, but that's why it's fun, right? So any last questions? We have 10 minutes left. I've loved the questions so far, so yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for these social media accounts where somebody in the company in the past created a blog or something and then they stopped using it, or and the information to get on it disappeared, and suddenly you have this blog, your company out there, you have no access to it?
Yeah. So I actually had this happen to me.
How rude.
I actually have had this happen to me, unfortunately, with a YouTube account, which is run by Google. And unfortunately, in the case of that, it is like near impossible to do. But at least that I was able to figure out before I left the company. But other platforms like Facebook, Twitter, things like that, I've found that the people that run them are typically fairly responsive to customer inquiries like that. As long as you can prove that you are, I think, who you say you are, and explain the situation fully. And, I found that a lot of them will work with you. The YouTube thing for me was a mess. And, I mean, you can't really email Google.
Well, we'll add to that. You can call Google, actually. So if there's any product that's owned by Google, you can, like Google Business Plus, YouTube, Blogger, anything like
There
that.
you go. I should have called you from
We
that
do
company.
call Google on a semi-regular basis, so if you have like a search specialist or anybody that has access to like calling Google, if you can get them on the phone, they're actually pretty helpful with like taking those down.
But the other
Or getting them.
services, I would definitely say Facebook's great for reporting things like that.
And Instagram is really helpful.
Yeah, I haven't tried Instagram, but yeah, typically those other platforms are pretty receptive to that, because yeah, that happens. I've seen it happen. Last week we discovered WebSpec has a Pinterest page that I didn't know about. Yeah. So it happens.
On Google though, you can't actually call Google. Google will call you.
Oh yeah.
So
Okay.
if you have
You can
one
talk to
phone
them.
line for your office, then you need to make sure that the person who answers that phone knows that Google call is spam and it's actually for you. So then we've had that happen a couple times. So just make sure that if they're not calling your direct line, that whoever answers the phone knows that it's not the spam Google call, it's a real Google call.
And I will put out I forgot to say it earlier, but Lindsay's doing a talk on SEO later today. So if that part of my presentation piqued your interest, she will be talking all sorts of SEO goodness later this afternoon. So, and I know we're kind of cutting a little bit close on time. I don't know when the next one starts, and if there's any questions you don't feel like asking publicly, grab me. I'll be here, I think, at least through noon tomorrow. Or find me on Twitter and on the DrupalCorn hashtag too. You can ask me there. Or email me at website. Or ask them now. Yeah.
How useful are tools like Hootsuite, or whatever?
Super.
Yeah.
They are super helpful.
Is that what you use for this?
So this is actually TweetDeck, which is what I prefer to use to funnel my various streams I like to follow. But Hootsuite's also really, really great. I use it extensively with my personal blog. It's great because you can hook up, with the free one, you can hook up like to 4 accounts, I think. It works super well. There's also other options out there. I've used Buffer. Buffer works well. CoSchedule, which that one you'll have to pay for, but that one is really nice. see, and this is where I'm going to let my WordPress side show. I'm way more of a WordPress person, but they have a really awesome WordPress plugin that it hooks up with your actual blog, and then you can, like I was telling him, that I schedule like 10 tweets out. It basically gives me a timeline within my blog that I'm able to dictate the time and dates that everything goes out.
And the text that goes out.
Yep, and the text. And there's also Edgar, which is a new one. I haven't used that one yet. Awesome.
I would recommend Sprout Social too. If you
Oh, that's a good one too.
Sprout Social.
There's a lot of good ones.
Depending on how extensive you have to get into it, they actually have a lot of really good like metrics and insights that you can look at too. So if you're trying to prove to somebody like in management, like, hey, I actually like this is a profitable venture for us to spend time on, it does show like your user interaction on your social platforms that you integrate with it, and the people that work there are helpful.
What's it called again?
Sprout Social.
Sprout Social.
And I don't know how much Sprout Social is, but
It's per user per month, but you can also have multiple like user accounts depending on who's gonna update it.
because I know like Hootsuite's like $5 a month, so I don't know. Depending on your initial how much money you want to put into it, honestly. Things like the base Hootsuite is free, but if you're like Lindsay's talking about, it's really good to be able to prove those metrics to your supervisors, especially if you're going to take the time out of your day to do this. So you're going to want to look at, with these different services, like Hootsuite, you have to pay the $5 or $6 a month to get some reports. So as you're kind of deciding of the several you mentioned, like, which one you're going to start using, I would say definitely look at what you would be paying for what you would be getting in terms of those reports, because you would be very sad to have put 6 months into it and then not be able to pull the metrics you wanted to pull. So
lots of those companies do demos too.
Yeah, definitely.
Do a pay one, so definitely demo a few to decide what one works best for your needs.
Yep. Good second thought. Any more?
So I did tweet out about people use. I searched for Drupal. I searched for hash Drupal.
Yeah.
And there was, of course, were more results without the hash than there were with.
Yep.
So I tweeted out, hey, people, are we potentially losing results on this? And so should we change the way we do it? And the first response I got back was, do people search Twitter by hashtag?
Oh yeah. Like if you look, so this one right here. Oh wait, no, these are my lists. One of these I didn't give the hashtag. I do it all the time. So let me just pull up. Like I said, I'm pretty into CrossFit. So if I do a search, see, like these are like past things I've searched, but I mean, so this is like TweetDeck. You can do the same thing in Hootsuite that you search for them. Oh, maybe I lost internet.
Oh, that happens.
But it's great. I mean,
are there metrics on Twitter searches? Who's using hashtags?
I would bet. I'm not sure.
The Wikipedia page for hashtags isn't helpful.
Another thing relating to kind of searching in hashtags is something that is more popular, at least in the blogging world, which is Twitter chats, and that's when basically everyone in this community is going to get online at one time, and they all use a certain hashtag. So I used to, I trained for a marathon like 2 years ago, so I was really into running for a year. And so every week I would participate in a run chat. And at 8 o'clock on Sunday night, everyone runs a search for run chat, and there's questions and there's conversations in that community. So definitely people search by hashtag. I would say it does go back to, it goes back a lot to the audience, because I do, but I'm a 26-year-old female from Iowa. A 40-year-old mom with 3 kids. Because she
has Twitter.
Yeah, I mean,
she has no time for Twitter.
So it does depend on that, but definitely. I love Twitter, so I'm a
I do too.
I probably sound like a little fangirl, but I really love it.
You sold me on hashtags.
But
Oh yeah.
This that Drupal.
Who watches it all the time anymore? It's all DVR.
This last column, this is actually the search of the, I don't think my internet's on, so it's not up to date, but this is actually a search of the DrupalCorn hashtag. So that's how I'm using that to actually follow everybody.
You're missing a lot.
Yeah. I think my internet fell off. So
I mean, people aren't using the hash.
Well,
because it would literally be @ to trigger the account, and then a hash to get the hash.
So when you're doing hashtags, you don't have to do @. You just have to do the hashtag.
It pings them.
Oh, does it?
They get a ping that you're mentioned.
Yeah. Well,
Which we
yeah.
like.
It pings them, but like if you're in the case of using the DrupalCorn hashtag, for instance, if you don't use the hashtag, you're not, and you just say @DrupalCorn, you're not going to show up in the hashtag DrupalCorn search. So, but if you just search DrupalCorn, then you're going to get any instance of DrupalCorn being used. So that one's a little messier because
It's a unique word.
yeah. And if you'll notice, the other fun thing about hashtags that's not so fun actually, if you see this one, this is spam. But somebody saw that DrupalCorn was being used heavily today and went in and said, this is my tweet that I actually tweeted, but they retweeted with vote KT48 something or other.
Yep.
So they're trying to get themselves noticed based off of DrupalCorn.
And if they get real creative, they'll create a Drupal_corn account. Use the
Well,
exact
that
same image as
happens.
that one.
That happens too.
I've had my account cloned like half a dozen times now.
All the fun of social, right?
Yeah.
Well, it is too, so I don't want to keep anybody, but like I said, if you have other questions, feel free. And you guys have been really great, so thanks.